There's a lot going on in California today and over the weekend. You have the National Guard that has been nationalized by the Trump administration to help put down protests, what the administration is claiming to be riots. Okay, so now, when did this start? Friday. On Friday, there were a bunch of ICE raids in California, like, for example, the fashion district of downtown LA. They were out there looking for undocumented criminals and gang members. What did they find? Seamstresses and construction workers. Wow. The following day, Saturday, they made arrests outside of a Home Depot in Paramount, which is a working class LA suburb where you had day laborers, some of them undocumented, getting together and going to work on small scale construction projects. That seems weird. I thought they were going after the criminals and gang members, but instead they're going after working people. Oh, that's really strange. Now, figures vary from the day, but apparently they reportedly arrested between 100 to 200 people. Again, no like details on how many of them were criminal MS-13 members. Probably very few of them, if any. Okay, so that's what's going on here, and that's according to the ACLU. And look, a lot of these warrants, by the way, that they had were judicial warrants. Okay, I'm sorry, without judicial warrants, they had administrative warrants, and so that's very, very important. Once again, ICE not following due process of alleged undocumented immigrants, and I say alleged because it's like, if you don't have due process, how do you prove that you're a citizen or that you're legally allowed to be here? Okay. Oh, right, you can't. That's it. Now, these raids, of course, led to some swift backlash from the residents in California. Agents were met with protesters who chanted, some perhaps even threw eggs, before being dispersed by police that, of course, were wearing riot gear, shields, using their batons, and flashbang grenades, pepper balls, rubber bullets, one hitting a Australian reporter. Okay, yeah, tear gas, all that stuff. Now, by Sunday, the ranks of the protesters ended up swelling to include members of the clergy, elected officials, and union activists, which is awesome. Among protesters arrested was union leader David Huerta, president of the SEIU, USWW, and SEIU California. So now, how did Trump respond? Well, he responded to the protests with escalating force. Of course, he stated sending the state's National Guard against the wishes of Governor Gavin Newsom. And so that's very, very important. So he's just sending them in there, even though Newsom's like, I don't want them. I don't want these people. We've got everything in hand. It's fine. Stop this. Okay. Total escalation. Now, you had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that in addition to the 2,000 guardsmen, the government would be considering sending in the Marines. You're going to send in the military to California for what was originally just like a few hundred protesters that were largely peaceful? Absolute ridiculousness. Absolutely deranged. It's authoritarian. It's lawlessness. Okay? And it's the government that is doing the lawlessness. And yet they're the ones that are claiming these protesters were insurrectionists, and they love that word without actually understanding what it actually means. Okay? Because this is the same administration that pardoned actual insurrectionists. And I don't mean the people who were at the Capitol to take a selfie that wandered in, because there's certainly a few of those, right? A lot of those. No, I'm talking about the ones that were beating up police officers with flagpoles, bear spray, chains, improvised weaponry. Those were the people, okay, that were the actual insurrectionists, okay, that were there. All right. And then also you had the people that were stealing things like Nancy Pelosi's laptop and crapping all over the walls. Okay. Those people are all free as well as the so-called Proud Boys, which I guess apparently they're not allowed to be called Proud Boys anymore because somebody else took the name, but doesn't matter. The Proud Boys, the leader, Enrique Tarrio, was convicted and sentenced on charges of seditious conspiracy. He's out. In fact, along with the 37 members that were arrested and charged with January 6th related offenses. Okay? They're all free, thanks to Donald Trump, blanket pardon. Freed the criminals, he freed the gang members, and yes, he even freed the rapists. NPR identified dozens of defendants on January 6th with prior convictions or pending charges for crimes including rape, sexual abuse of a minor, domestic violence, manslaughter, production of child sexual abuse material, and drug trafficking. These are all the so-called great people that were in January 6th. The so-called patriots, and depending on who you ask, they are either patriots or tourists. All right? Now, one of those so-called tourists, Matthew Huddle, was shot and killed by law enforcement in Indiana during a traffic stop just days after getting his pardon. Another, Theodore Middendorf, was accused by Illinois prosecutors of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child. Prosecutor said in a court filing obtained by NPR that Middendorf committed an act of sexual penetration on a 7-year-old. Gross, disgusting. These are the patriots, right? And yet Trump let them out. They're fine people, great people, the best people, patriots, all of them, tourists. Oh, they were treated so poorly. But yeah, the people that are protesting against ICE, which again is operating outside of the law with their masked agents abducting and disappearing people right off the street. Those people, we got to support ICE and go after the protesters who are stopping them from carrying out these illegal, essentially kidnappings. Okay? Again, we're supposed to believe that this administration gives a damn about protecting Americans from criminals? Really? He let out the criminals and is arresting the construction workers and seamstresses. That's what's going on here. Well, you're going to protect, ICE against people that threw eggs. By the way, eggs still not cheap. And when people are throwing those, you got to be pretty pissed off. All right? Now, speaking of pissed off, the baby in chief spent Sunday night egging things on. Well, once again, that was unintentional, by the way. But look, this is after Newsom had described the National Guard deployment correctly, by the way. And look, I'm not a Newsom fan, but his reaction to this is great. Yeah, he's like, these are the acts of a dictator. He also accused Trump of inciting and provoking violence, yes. Creating mass chaos, yes. And militarizing cities, yes. That's exactly what he's doing. Shortly after midnight Washington time, Trump wrote in a True Social post that LA, this is after apparently watching an interview with LA Police Chief Jim McDonnell. He said he should bring in the troops, quote, right now. Looking really bad in LA, bring in the troops, he wrote. Arrest the people in face masks now. Well, hold on. Wouldn't then ICE also be targeted by then? Because, they're also wearing face masks. Hide their identities. So, I'm just saying. Okay. And yes, they're doing illegal things. They're violating due process. They're not using the right kind of warrants. And all in an effort to, of course, intimidate people and to pump up their arrest numbers. This is probably why Homan and Miller targeted LA in the first place. They said, oh, we're going to get more arrests if we go there. Ah, yes. And probably prompt a response as well, which is exactly what happened. Now, funny enough, on Friday, the LAPD put out a statement saying that the demonstrations were so far completely peaceful. But again, apparently that changed. They were no longer peaceful after ICE started firing flashbang grenades into the crowd. That's when things got bad. Protesters, of course, obviously hit back, and then we were off to the races. All right. But here's the thing, though. Calling in the National Guard, nationalizing the California National Guard to use against protesters, not a good thing. Okay. And by the way, the legality here is highly suspect, which again, he doesn't care about that. But in his order to nationalize the California Guard, Trump cited Title 10 of the U.S. Code. A provision of Title 10, Section 12406, allows the president to deploy National Guard units into federal service if the U.S. is invaded, there is a rebellion or danger of rebellion, or the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Well, number one, there is no invasion. I know the administration claims, oh, migrant invasion. Not true. Not true. Okay. There's no rebellion. And for the most part, the protests were, again, overwhelmingly peaceful, which means Trump has illegally unleashed the military on American citizens. That is a pretty serious thing. Deadly serious. Governor Newsom, in response to it so far, again, he's criticized the administration, but has also sued the administration and even dared Tom Homan to come and arrest him, to which Homan's like, oh, never mind. I wasn't actually making those threats at all, because earlier Homan had made those threats and then went full taco. So there you go. But nonetheless, it is a very serious, very dangerous, volatile situation where you have Donald Trump, a wannabe strongman, unsurprisingly acting like a strongman, because once again, the authorities had failed to rein him in when they had a chance. Yes, authoritarian doing authoritarian shit. And we're all supposed to be surprised? No. Look, Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, Mitch McConnell, Republicans, Supreme Court, MAGA sycophants in Congress, all of them share a responsibility for what happens in this administration. It is on all of you for failing to stop Donald Trump's fascism before it had a chance to start. And that should never be forgotten. Again, no matter what happens here after today, after this weekend, you cannot forget all of those who allowed things to get this bad. And if things get worse, once again, we can't forget who's at fault. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.